Can't somebody just say we want to stop capitalism? I mean, it's like not enough to do these little reforms. Yeah. I mean, the one big demand that I heard out of the Occupy Wall Street Demand Committee, they may have changed, but I was hearing this report on the radio, and they said, well, the one thing we can all agree on is full employment. It's like, you don't get capitalism in the slightest, do you? You cannot have full employment under capitalism. It's not how it works. I was like, wow, that is just such milquetoast. I can't even believe it. Just have complete ignorance about what they're up against. So
yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, it's got to pull the other way. We can't pull to the center. It's got to pull to the more radical edge. This is going to help.
For those of us who have a right to vote, what good does it do to vote when it doesn't even seem to count? What can be done to change this, and so our vote can actually count?
Okay, well, one good thing would be to read the constitutions of places like Switzerland and Sweden, which I think are great models, because their constitutions locate power on the local level, and then it's basically confederated across the whole country. That was written out of the U.S. Constitution on purpose, because they did not want power at the local level. So we've got states, which are still really big, and then we've got the federal government on top of that. We could be doing this completely different. And if we actually had some power on the local level, your vote would count, in fact. You could actually work this out with your neighbors for years, and Vermont still runs by town meeting, so you get together with your neighbors and you talk. Where I lived in Massachusetts, we still had town meeting as well, and you know, so the first Tuesday of every February, whatever, you got together, you have a town meeting, and it's really boring decisions like, you know, the parking meters or whatever, but that's the stuff that you're dealing with.
Right.
Vermont has a very strong secession movement, and that's the Second Vermont Republic. They've got 2 newspapers and a radio station, and they are introducing the idea of Vermont secession into almost every town meeting now. They're bringing it up as let's vote for secession. It's actually in their state constitution. When they joined the United States, they said, and we can leave if we don't like this. And they had people come from Canada, and they said, so if we vote for this, what's Canada going to do? And the guy from Canada was like, we believe in international law. If the people of Vermont vote, this is what they want, we will recognize you as a nation, and we will accept your passports. And it was like, this is beyond cool. And that's just the thing about Vermont, is that they have an identity as people who live in Vermont, which I think may be stronger than their identity as U.S. citizens for a lot of them. But they still run their affairs on the local level. That it was never destroyed in Vermont the way it was everywhere else. So they know how to make democratic decisions, you know, with the people that they live with. And that is a lot to build on. Most of us don't have that living experience. They do. And they mean business. So that's another model I really want people to look into, because they're doing it. Okay, this isn't just pie in the sky. There are people all across the planet who actually know how to do this.
Voting makes me think of a few things. One of which is puking, another which is probably masturbation. But don't want to put those together, frankly. Yeah. Except when you vote. There's something I was thinking about with the third-party thing that I wanted to mention, which is that when I lived in Spokane, a person who was a state representative came to asked a whole bunch of people that she knew peripherally if she should run for state senate, and I was one of the people that she asked. We went out to dinner and then we talked about it, and her politics were really good. And one of the things I said, this is like 15 years ago, one of the things I said to her is, you know, you have a really good heart and your politics are great, and if something happens along the way, I'm going to follow your career, and if something happens along the way, I'll know that the system is even more irredeemable than we think, because you're a good person. If you vote for bad things when you're in the state senate office as in Washington, that something bad has happened. And she's actually she's done some bad things, and has voted against the environment. I know activists in Spokane who were very disappointed that the system itself is, I don't even want to say corruption because that's how it works, but the system itself is well, what I can say is that there was a person who was an extremely good person with a good heart, who won't even take phone calls from someone who is attempting to get rights of nature and rights to organize in Spokane. Wouldn't even return the phone call. So that's one thing that happens with that system. And the other thing, voting. Yeah, I actually believe in voting on the local level, especially where I live, because the right-wing people are so crazy here that it's like locally I actually will do the lesser two evils. It's like anybody but these really insane. On a larger scale, it's pretty interesting. I think that Obama did a really smart thing by putting off the Keystone Pipeline decision, because there were, I think, a lot of people in 2000. They said, okay, no more. This is going to be the last time we've offered the lesser two evils. And then Bush was so terrible. Like 2004, they're like, okay, this is really the last time. And then 2008 was like, okay, seriously, this is the last time. And now what he's done, I mean, Obama has been just such a disaster that I think that by delaying the Keystone Pipeline decision, he can now say, okay, you environmentalists, look, if you don't vote for me, this is game over for the planet, as James Hansen says. So I think that he found something that he could find a way to hook people back in. Then once he gets in, he's going to do the same crap he's been doing. He's just going to be, I mean, he's actually in many ways been worse environmentally than Bush was.
I know, that's
Wow.
hard to say.
It's like, yeah, I can't believe I just spoke that.
But the same thing happened with that's another thing I was going to say about the whole Constitution thing, is that I think there was something. I mean, those in power, like the last few days, the Senate passed a law about or the Senate passed a bill about
The detainees one?
Yeah, the detainees.
Yeah,
that United States citizens can be detained on United States soil indefinitely
Without trial.
without trial. And one of the lines that somebody said about this is true for anyone who would want to subvert the sovereignty of the United States. And it's like, hey, that's pretty cool, because what that means is everybody who voted for NAFTA should be detained indefinitely. You know, because that's one of the things that kills me about all this stuff is it's all just lies. Because seriously, all the right-wing people who freak out about the UN, you know, the UN's going to take over. I'm sure you saw the sign on the way down. If you don't, you'll see it on the way back. You go up 199. There's somebody has a big sign, US out of United Nations.
I missed that.
Yeah, well, you'll see it. NAFTA, I mean, GATT and NAFTA, all that stuff. That's all subverting the U.S. sovereignty. And I mean, and I'm not a patriot, but from a patriotic perspective, all those people should be put up against the wall. I mean, why aren't the Tea Party? Well, because they're puppets of the rich. But this is why I could talk to that friend of mine today who's really right wing, is because he totally agrees with this. He thinks that NAFTA was a subversion of the U.S. Constitution. Blah blah blah.
Sorry, it was just the last question here.
Also, I would question the use of the word world. We don't want to dismantle the world. That's what capitalism is doing.
Right, that's already been.
We actually want to dismantle capitalism to start to dismantle civilization. But if we change it for that, then.
Can I say the question again?
It was, I'll replace world with capitalism.
Got it. Steve, why don't you try and then
I think that that's basically just above ground and below ground. That's the same as any resistance movement whatsoever. That, you know, only 2% of the IRA ever picked up weapons. 98% was doing various support work, which included feeding people. Kropotkin said, he said it better than this, but basically he said a lot of revolutions have failed because of bread. That if you can't eat. So what we need is to be relocalizing. We need to have relocalizing food supplies, relocalizing education, relocalizing
decision making.
That
local democracy.
Yeah. So that, and we need to be re-mythologizing, telling other stories. And one of the things I say all the time that it just pisses me off is, what did the movies On the Waterfront, Straw Dogs, V for Vendetta, give me a couple more.
Saturday Night
Dr.
Fever,
Zhivago,
all of them.
Saturday Night Fever. What do they all have in common?
Blade Runner.
What they all have in common is they all have the standard pornographic rape fantasy at some point, which is where a man either rapes or somehow otherwise tortures a woman, and at the end of the scene, she's pulling him close. Dr. Zhivago, Ev Grab starts to rape Lara, and at the beginning of the scene, she's pushing him away. By the end of the scene, she's pulling him close. Now contrast that with Deliverance, where a man gets raped. At the end of the scene is Ned Beatty pulling the guy close and saying, "I love you." V for Vendetta. He kidnaps her. He puts her in solitary confinement, tortures her, and then the first thing she says when she comes out is, "I love you." This is bullshit. Yeah. And my point is, so we need to be telling different stories. We need to be telling all fundamental. Okay, I think there are many problems we face right now. One is male supremacism, obviously. One is white supremacism, obviously. Another one that we don't talk about at all is human supremacism. And the notion that humans are more important or more intelligent or more anything than hammerhead sharks or coho salmon or prairie dogs, that they have more rights to live than those others. And so we need to be telling stories that don't have the landscape just as backdrop, but the landscape is actually a character because the landscape is alive. The Tolowa lived here for 12,500 years, and the fundamental difference between Western and indigenous ways of being is that even the most open-minded Westerners still perceive the world as consisting of resources. And non-humans speak to us. We desperately need to be telling these different stories. And also, I know we were talking about this one time, that we were trying to figure out who were some male writers, male feminist fiction writers, and we came up with like Thomas Hardy, Henrik Ibsen, so we came up with some from the 1880s, 1890s, and then 1940s, 1950s.
Just dropped off the edge. There was nothing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
We got Stephen King with Dolores Claiborne. So we need those stories.
Well, now Stieg Larsson.
Thank you. I forgot about him. It's great books. Anyway, but at the same time, we have to dismantle, and I don't see a problem with that. I think we can do it at the same time. Any resistance movement, the Irish, they were fighting the British at the same time they're having a renaissance of Irish culture.
And the world really does want to be repaired. I mean, if you look at civilization, it's been 10,000 years, it's destroy. And what we've got to do is reverse that process and just repair. And really that just means get out of the way, because the world will do that work for us. I mean, the beavers are taking down the canals now at Chernobyl. All it took was the people going away, and and I shouldn't say all people because there's still a few people there who stayed in Chernobyl and would not leave were the old women, and they're not hurting anybody. But except for that, the industrial humans went away, and so now you have multiple packs of wolves, plural packs of wolves.
Lots, actually.
Which tells you, how much food there is there for them to eat, because they're, the apex predators. So that means there's food. The beavers are back; they're destroying the canals. There's all kinds of rare birds now that haven't been seen there for 100 years. And Derrick makes the point that what this means is that, like even on the worst possible day you can imagine of a nuclear meltdown. That's actually better for the planet than the everyday workings of industrial civilization. So you can take that one home. But if we were to repair even 75% of the world's trashed out prairies, which have been destroyed by agriculture, let's be very clear what's happened to that land, but even 75% of those, if we could restore them to perennial polycultures, to the grasses that would like to be there and the ruminants that belong there, they could all come home. Within 12 years, we could sequester all the carbon that's been released since the beginning of the industrial age. Carbon would drop to 333 parts per million, which is well below that 350 cutoff mark. I don't know why we're not talking about this. We should be repairing the planet. I mean, there's no groovy green solution that involves, God knows what kind of crazy toxic substances. I mean, what they do to make, the windmills and the solar panels. I mean, they're creating toxic lakes in China. Okay, and people need to understand this. It's just as horrible as the tar sands and the mountaintop removal. It's just happening in China, not here. Okay, so there isn't like a green, groovy way out of this. We cannot sustain this way of life. The planet can't do it. Okay, but if we were to repair what we've destroyed over the last 10,000 years, then yes,
By
it's not too
you mean
late.
just leave it